video is for the second part of your notes. We're going to talk about salt and density and how salt changes the density of water. So here I have two jars. These two jars, the same temperature, just one is less, one is more. And then I have these 2 cups full of salt. So if I put these salt, and there's the same amount of salt in both, if I put this salt in this jar and this salt in this jar, which jar will be saltier? I am going to mix the salt in and I will come back. Okay, so I've mixed all the salt in to the 2 jars here. So let's think about this. Which one is more salty? They both have the same amount of salt. Well, if we look at the globe here, the sun beats down on this equator area here. It beats down on the equator, and then the poles, remember, it doesn't get as much sunlight on the poles as it does on the equator. It gets way more sun on the equator. And what happens is when that sun hits the water nearest the equator, it evaporates. And when it evaporates, it leaves the salt behind. And so the saltier water is going to be the water that evaporates and leaves the salt behind, and that water with that salt is going to be saltier. So the water that has less water with the same amount of salt is going to be saltier than the water that has more water in the same amount of salt. Okay, so what happens when we have saltier water? How does it affect its density? So I'm going to take the salty water and I'm going to pour it into water. Now when we pour it into the water, salt water should sink. So as you can see, that water is sinking to the bottom. It's kind of hard to see. That green is really, really faint, but you should be able to see, right? We have the green water sank down here, and then we still have the clear water up here. So salt water, the saltier the water, it goes down here. So salty water is more dense than less salty water or not salty water. So that means that on the globe, this is going to be saltier near the equator. It's going to be less salty at the poles. And as that water moves down, well, let's look, down towards the equator, and this water moves up towards the poles, that saltier water from the equator is going to go underneath the water from the poles because it is more salty.